This is how we used to troop around back in the days with jackets on. All these people around, just walking around, jackets, racking shit, fly head to toe, looking like Power Rangers and shit. This is how we used to be done.
You know, growing up in the city, I'm from 103rd and Broadway. I have a subway stop on the corner. It's not as convenient as this spot, which has a subway stop like next door. But yeah, it was down the block, right on the corner. Super convenient, and that was my mode of transport. You know, I was always on the 1 train. You know, now we got the 1 and the 9. Back then there was no 9, it was the 1 train. But the 1 train was my predominant train in my youth, junior high, high school, and just traveling up and down Manhattan, because that's what the 1 does. So I was always on the 1 and got exposed early days to the Writers Corner 188 crew, Snake 1, Stitch 1, Cat 87, Miko, that whole kind of like Upper West Side Hispanic crew, Coco tags here and there. And I just, like jelly beans, started following the tags. I mean, the thing about graffiti, like, you know, I mean, it's like, once again, it's quite obvious. You write Frank 207, you write SJK 171, you know, Joe 136. I got a pretty good idea what streets you live on. So if I wanted to maybe go see if I could find you, let me go up to your station. And I'll get out and oh, look, there's your tag. Okay, cool. Yeah, let me just hang out here for a minute and see who rolls through. Maybe I'll see some people that look like writers, and I'll just wander around and discover stuff. And that's how I was. And that's what, to me, graffiti was. So that's what I saw. Tags on trains. And then I figured, oh, wow, I could motion tag. You know, I could write on the insides of these trains by riding the train in the opposite direction during off-peak hours, if you will. You know, when everyone's going to work, I'm going the other way. And the train, by the end of that, you know, line or the end of that, you know, direction, it's relatively empty. I'm in a single car by myself. So that's how I started tagging. I didn't like tagging in stations because I thought they would get cleaned. It was too easy to remove markers from tile, I thought. And I wasn't a spray painter yet. I was just a marker guy. You know, I didn't know how to spray paint, really. I'd picked up a can. I was terrible at it, right? So, but I loved, you know, I had a good signature. I had good handwriting. So I liked the markers of our era, you know, the Mini Y, the Uni Y. Like, I liked those. I used to mix inks with Flow ink, you know, Flowmaster ink. I would add, like, colors to the pen and streak my tags. Super corny, but creative. Even if it's only in this one isolated, you know, because once you do that and you move the marker, you smear everything, you know, the effect is gone. But I was just kooky and young and, you know, but the Futura 2000 tag I created, I thought was different, you know, and
can I ask, because I've gotten 2 stories, right, which is that it was from Stanley Kubrick's A Space Odyssey 2001.
Yep.
And then I also read that it was from the Lincoln Ford, Lincoln
well, it's
Futura
all of them.
model.
Well, it's all of them. The 2000 comes from 2001.
Okay.
Because, once again, now I'm the first 4-digit guy. Sorry, Andre. You're the man. I know you just had your birthday. Happy birthday, Andre. But there were no 4-digit graffiti artists, right? There were Roman numeral graffiti writers. There were 3-number graffiti writers, you know. Seji 719 might have been the highest number, you know, maybe if you think about numbers. I mean, it might have been an 800 guy. There was no 900s yet. There was no 900 numbers yet, you know, telephone, whatever. So for me, 2000 was cool in that thing. And plus, Kubrick did inspire me. And plus, my tag Futura, taken from the car, the 55 or whatever Ford that was later a Batman prototype, the Futura typeface, Paul Renner developed that typeface. The blender from whatever Waring or whatever company made blenders. Singer sewing machine, Futura. So the names were there. I just did the combination, but with the Futura arrows kind of like going up in space, and that was all me just doing on my own, you know, oh, wow, I'm like Mad Men coming up with some marketing scheme or graphic thing to match the identity of the brand, which was going off into space. Welcome to New York. Little did I know that in a few years, Cut to a couple years later, Lenny, you're going to be on an aircraft carrier in the military where your job is launching and recovering aircraft all off the roof of the flight deck. So there was something not prophetic, but
Sure.
I was onto something. Plus, I was still a forward thinker, dreamer, at least in the sense of like, well, 2000's a year, you know, what, I was 15 and I came up with that. I'm not gonna live to see 2000 actually, right? So it's not something I'll live to, it's not like I had a, I'm not trying to die, but there was a vibe when I was coming up that, okay, you know, you didn't want to get old necessarily. You know, it was like a live fast, die young vibe. You know, I'm glad I lost that, right? But just to say that's where I was thinking when I'm a 15, 16-year-old kid.
It's relatable.
Like, I don't want to live to be 45, right? You know, I don't want to farm out from this young life experience, you know. Plus, like, the vibe, you know, it's all what you were talking about in relation to what else is happening in the world, or certainly in the country at that time, the city, obviously locally. And yeah, I mean, you know, we're in the middle of, we're at war, and the nation's in a really bad spot, you know, for all the wrong reasons, you know, not just racial tension, but, you know, everything. So, weird time for us, and weird time for me as a kid. Once again, that's why this outcome, us being here, you know, amongst the living, having lost so many of the angels from our story, you know, it's a blessing.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Every day is a blessing.
Yes, it is.
And let me ask you, I believe it was 1972, there was a City College student by the name of Hugo Martinez.
Yes.
That started a collective called UGA, United Graffiti Artists.
Yes.
That was largely comprised of subway writers.
Yep.
Phase 2, Snake, Stitch, Coco, Henry 161.
Yes.
And I believe they had a studio or a clubhouse of some sort somewhere uptown Manhattan.
Yep, up under George Washington Bridge. And that's the spot that ultimately I had sussed out. This is after, you know, like I was saying, local recon and trying to find writers. But yeah, so I graduated high school in 72, June. My birthday's in November, so I'm 16 that summer. And I graduated early. I skipped a grade during my education. And so here I am. I'm a young kid. I'm definitely like too young looking. I mean, if I'm 69 now and you can say, oh, dude, you look like 61. You know, whatever you want to throw me 4 or 5 years, thank you, please. But back in the day when I was 16, I probably looked like I was like 12, 13, right? I looked like a little kid. I was always little Lenny all that time. So basically, I go up to City College to get my curriculum or whatever, you know, whatever you guys call this shit. You know, I'm here to go to school. And they were like, oh, yeah, Music and Art High School. They were trying to send me to M&A High School, which is right nearby City College,
Sure.
thinking I'm a high school student. I was like, guys, check your records. You know, oh yeah. Oh, my God, you're so young. You look, yeah. I'm like, yeah, whatever. You know, so a few months later into this first semester at City College, and I wasn't feeling it because there was no pressure to go to college, right? And my mom just wanted a high school diploma. So I'm like shooting pool and, you know, doing my little hustle. And I saw Hugo. And that's, you know, and he wound up kind of, I don't want to say he hated me, but he never liked me because maybe he thought, you know, like I was just like not one of the like local dummy knuckleheads, right? There's just like some road furniture. You know, I was more observant and aware and, you know, blah, blah, blah. You know, so, and later when I saw him uptown, he's like, hey, get out of here. You know, he was always like, yo, fuck out of here. So, and then later in life, you know, when me and Lonnie became friends, you know, better friends, we used to speak about that, and he's like, yeah, whatever, you know.
And just for those that don't know, Lonnie is Phase 2.
Lonnie is
the great
Phase 2.
Phase 2.
Yeah, the great Phase 2, true himself,
And
who
Mike,
could speak like 4 languages.
He was a very profound
he could speak
character
really
indeed.
good Italian. Like, I would hear Faze have a like conversational Italian. Like, I mean, I'm lucky enough. I spent a lot of time in France. My kids are half French. My French is okay. You know, it gets better when I get in country, but I could, you know, Faze would just like jump right out of a, you know, an expression and just be Italian. It was incredible. And his French was very good also.
And out of the UGA guys, Mike 171 took you to your first layup.
Well, you know what? Okay. No, not first, but took me to a layup.
Took you to a layup.
So we can't claim no, because I was a tunnel rat in the one tunnel, and whatever, like Van Cortlandt. Like I used to. Once again, there's no line. There's nothing at the end of the one line. It's South Ferry. It used to loop around and come right back. There used to be that big like horseshoe. So there's only one end of station, and that's Van Cortlandt 242nd. Been all over that yard, been all over the one tunnel. Once again, initially, that's what I knew. Prior to the UGA and Mike and Steve, Cliff 149. No, wait, 159. I'm so sorry. Yeah, I was right the first time. Only Stay High can have that. Cliff took me, Ali, Moses, Patch, like a bunch of knuckleheads from back in the day, early 73 era, to the 3-yard. And 3YB and we had a crew called Soul Artists back then. Now, mind you, we were toys. We were just trying to, like, have a crew. You know, okay, we could kind of, before the Ball Busters came and people took over the one tunnel as a, you know, yo, this is our spot. That was, that and the abandoned station between 96th and 86th. That was also our hometown because, once again, we lived on that line. You know, those type of things made sense in graffiti. Not like it was territorial. Graffiti was not territorial. Not like you would imagine, yo, I can't go in that neighborhood. Of course you can. You're underground. You can go anywhere, right? It's not like you're even in the neighborhood. You're just in the neighborhood. It's like a weird kind of catch-22. So you could be in East New York. You could be anywhere. You could be in the, you know, Zurika Avenue, fucking Park. You could be anywhere you wanted to be, but you're still within the system. Because we weren't tagging walls yet, right? It wasn't like, okay, this underground world is over. Now everything lives above ground. To me, the heart of the movement always pulsated underground because that's where the trains moved the tags through the city. And yeah, shout out to people like, what was it? Moss and Tree 127 and Moss, where they did all the like low perms on a lot of stations, and like those perms lasted a long time. My God, like you always thought in the era, like, oh wow, you know, like that's kind of whatevs. But then, you know, 30 years later, the tags are still running. You're like, fuck, man, you guys. The OE3 and P13 kind of style. You know, like a cool duo that just goes out and just bombs. And that was the thing too. In the first gen, I think it was more volume spoke to fame. I mean, I remember 1980. I don't think I couldn't get on a train on the IRTs, 1, 2, 3, even like 4, 5, 6, whatever. Like that Zephyr just didn't have tags running. Like, but then like a diversity, you know, like black drippy tags, spray paint tags, silver, just the variety also, you know, but the density. Yeah.
We were at the Whitney just 2 weeks ago.
What an honor.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Culture's been elevated to a museum space.
It has.
It's amazing.
Yes.
And during the slideshow, they reveal a Gordon Motta Clark photo.
Yeah.
You were absolutely humble because the collection is from 72 to 73.
Yep.
And you said, I'm inclined to say 73.
Yeah.
Which shows a lot of humility because
Well,
most people I know
no, of course.
really struggle with history.
Yeah.
And if they can insert themselves somewhere in the front of this chronological timeline, most people do.
Oh, of course. That's
and it
why
was a tremendous sign of character. So I applaud you for that. And it was an amazing photo.
No, I mean, that photo, and it's funny because Roger spoke about, and once again, you know, we're actually talking about the photo that appears in the Motta Clark book, Gordon Motta Clark. You know, the hidden archive, you know, they said it was like several thousand photographs for a 50-year period. If you could just imagine that, you know. And I mean, yeah, beyond my own moment there, which was really incredible. I mean, I didn't cry, but I got emotional about it, Chino, because when the Faith of Graffiti, I mean, the thing that marvels me about this whole story is the imagery from the Faith of Graffiti, John Narr, and all his photography that appears, is all that we knew to be true, documented in time. Other things have leaked out, Kirshheimer stations, a lot of things leaked out, but nothing to the level that was revealed. And so for all these years, everything was just based on what we knew to be true. Here comes Gordon's thing, and I was just overwhelmed. Now, let's say, also, I was trying to say, like, okay, is that photograph of my uni-wide, mini-wide tag on the front face of a subway car in 1973? 2-3, you know what? Yeah, it doesn't matter to me because, motherfucker, I'm there. It's proof of life. Indeed. And I don't care. It's not debatable. I'll take it. See, once again, I'm going to marry myself to 73 just for the fun of it all, because that's where Mike and SJK and Coco did the Lincoln Center. That's when they did the Razor Gallery. That's when me and Mark went and painted our faded train in September. So to me, that tag could have certainly been that summer, because all of these things were happening that year that I was being inspired by. So whatever it is. Now, I want to say in my mind, I came up with the name Futura 2000 when I was 15 in 1970, and the time it took me to kind of get out there. So that's, you just want my opinion, that's when I invented the name. But the known documentation of said tag entry identity has been proven out by Gordon's photo, and I'm just overwhelmed. Once again, like that photograph of Gordon's or Martha's photograph of the brake train. It's a toss-up for me. Because one side of me appreciates the graffiti writer kid I see there, who somehow, like, once again, what are the odds in the Faith of Graffiti? Because those photos are shot the same time, it's the same timeline, right? Faith had all this Norman Mailer and big production to make a book behind it.
A lot of John Narr photos.
With the Narr photos. And Kurlansky's design, whatever, they put it together. Gordon Mata Clark doesn't know anybody. He's got no hookups. Nobody's interested. And the thing just goes dormant.
And he's amassed a collection of over 2,500 images
Yes.
from this time period.
Yes.
That were relatively unknown
Yes.
until recently.
Some of them leaked out. You may have seen some too.
A couple have over the years, and from working on Beyond the Streets,
Sure.
I was in charge of designing arranging the Saatchi installation in London. Of his images.
So you've seen some bits.
I'm pretty familiar with the collection.
Like the pistol maybe
but
had
this
leaked.
resurfacing so many years, it's almost like finding a junior high school yearbook that you didn't know existed.
Oh, without
and
question.
so many of your contemporaries. So for me, the Jamel Shabazz book.
Yes. Yes.
Jamel was shooting in Bed-Stuy, Fort Greene, Clint Hill, the 5 Percenters, the Albee Square Mall. This was my orbit in the 6th, 7th, 8th grade.
Wow.
So I've sat with Jamel, I've sat with Charlie, I'm in the film.
Yes.
It's almost like someone dug up my junior high school yearbook in the stick-up kids, in the B-boys, in the Outlaws, because there was a gang culture in New York at the time.
Sure.
And all of these guys that I had to avoid or were friends with are somewhere in his images. Guys I went to elementary school. So it's a real treat for me. So when you say I almost wanted to cry, the nostalgia of seeing these lost artifacts and being reunited with something you maybe never thought you'd see again is priceless. And there's something magical about seeing an old photo for the first time.
No, without question, once again, it's like, you don't know something exists and then you get introduced to it. But my reaction beyond my own personal happiness was, I saw the show prior to its opening. I missed the actual night of the opening. We were out of the country. But I could see the energy in the room that night at the gallery. And I was just so happy, actually, for everyone. All, the thing I said of, all of us early writers all the writers from the early 70s are all now approaching their early 70s. And here were these old-timers, Charmin, everybody's up in there. Just the joy on that. It was like this wonderful feeling. Like I say, hey man, I'm good. I've had a wonderful story, and I'm still gonna do stuff tomorrow. A lot of these individuals, for the sad, the sad reality even that like they are captured in time. But this only, it's not like it's a 50-year-old bookend, but it does kind of now, because back then when it was in its infancy, no one knew what's going on. Now we can put that next to faith and go, wow, look at everything that happened essentially from the same period. You'd be putting Mata's book out of order by putting it at the end here, because they're both really back in that initial timeline. And for me, it just gives more of a body to all these other artists whose tags we see, who may not be with us, who don't want to show up to the opening because they didn't get compensated. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, to the whole stew of it all. But in the end, I always feel like, let's take one for the team, right? It's all for the greater good of our story. And I feel like that unearthed archive just enriches it, really, and gives them more power to the architectural school of it.
And one thing that I think binds, or all creatives or artists have in common, is that at some point we'd like to be acknowledged for the good work that we produce. And historically, there's been such a narrow distribution of graffiti images, primarily IRT.
Yeah.
There's a certain window from the early to mid 80s. It's really got an abundance of stuff. So for so many of these guys that the books might have missed, there was a spotlight turned on them today.
Yeah.
And they were finally acknowledged for some of the good work that they produce. And I think that that's some of the magic. It makes it what's so special about the archive, is seeing guys like Henry sitting next to Snake, signing black books, in being appreciated for the work. It might have taken a little while. I always say this, is that progress is a process.
Oh, without
and unfortunately, it took some time. But, watching Snake with a marker in his hand and a crowd around him smiling and posing for pictures, that's absolutely priceless.
Well, the Snake painting that was featured in the White Column show, which was featured in the Razor Gallery show back in '73, Art Forum put it up on their IG. So the attention the show got from a kind of a higher critical acclaim element, whether, once again, Whitney, people posting Snake's painting on IG, on their IG account with 1 million followers or whatever.
Jerry Salt's
Jerry's rant about, hey, why don't you guys buy this, MoMA? Yeah, no, all these things are great. And you know what? In a timeline way, in a patient kind of a way, if you can be, and it's very tough in the world we live in, maybe it just takes 50 years to bear out all of this reality. It's because, let's be clear, I think this whole movement was moving way ahead of its time. It's like we've always been operating a bit ahead of our time. We were just moving quicker, I guess, and that might have been the New York pace of the movement. We weren't waiting, we weren't asking for permission, we were just getting on with it. And yeah, it's great to look at that moment in history as documented by Gordon's work. And then also his personal story too, which I didn't know as much about him as the artist he was, and those cutouts he was doing in the Bronx, and things like that. It's kind of like radical, but once again,
it's real DIY culture right there at its finest. It's him just taking charge and doing it on his own terms.
You couldn't tell a young person to imagine life in New York City in 1973. They couldn't. You couldn't. First of all, shout out to, they may have just been going to the new police car. They shout out to the old black and green, the old school police vehicles. But that's another time, and yeah, what he was doing, not just DIY, I thought it was like super radical, but yeah, I'm so grateful for his effort, and his passion there, because once again, it wasn't like Nar with Faith probably had a paid gig to go out and shoot stuff. he's just doing it on the strength of like, he gets the rebellion of it. You know, he gets the, yeah, I'm trying to identify, you know, whatever, marking, you know. And I think, once again, you know, I've always thought, like, from those early days, like, I'm a graffiti writer. You know, I don't want it twisted, you know, like, I had no pretense in the beginning, like I was even an artist. It wasn't about being an artist. It was just about self-identification, you know. And my story is also specific in the sense that, like, you know, I've told this before, but when I moved to graffiti as the answer or the search, the quest, it was because I was told that my parents weren't my biological family. So, and when that information came in 1970, at 15, I was already like, oh, okay, so what now, if you will? No drama, no trauma, but some question marks. And once again, to me, the cliche of, hey, I saw the writing on the wall, and, you know, this spoke to me. Well, of course it did, you know, because it said to me, like, you know, it was like some, you know, beautiful creature asking me to come join, you know, something very, you know, I really needed that. I think I needed the movement then, because now my little, you know, what, oh my God, you know, well, now I'm Futura. You know, I'm trying to be a graffiti writer in New York. That's who I am.
And can I ask you something? I was afraid to touch on this, and you touched on it at the museum, and I felt like we were in a safe space.
Okay.
About this. Columbus Day, 1974, I believe. Was it Columbus Day? You were in the one tunnel with Ali, Mark Emmons.
Labor Day 73.
Labor Day 73. I
Correct.
had the wrong year and the wrong holiday.
Yes,
but
yes.
I kind of
You're on it. Yep.
Okay.
And that's when the faded accident occurred.
And from those that don't know.
Yeah. So Mark and I, Andre Edmonds, my dear friend since childhood, we grew up in this, you know, his building was right next, you know, I grew up in 242, he grew up in 250. We grew up on the same block. We were boys. And we're painting in the one tunnel. This is our, now having been inspired by 1973 and the Razor Gallery, and graffiti artists are trying to make paintings, and, you know, we're not there yet, but let's do a piece on a train. Let's not tag the insides. Let's actually do a piece. And strangely enough, in the White Column show, there was an outline of a Futura piece, if you will, from see that outline that was featured there next to the tag, that is from 73. That's from Mark's collection, which got legacy to this individual who contributed that piece. It's not mine. But that's the piece I tried to do in the tunnel. Now, it's not like tunnel worn. I didn't bring it to the tunnel with me, so it's not like burns.
Sure.
But it's that thing I left at Mark's house, like, oh, I'm going to do something like this. Because I didn't have stuff on paper. It was like, oh, this one I'm going to do. It's in my head. I'll work it out. So that was an interesting kind of combo. And that drawing is definitely 73. Because that's the drawing that I tried to do on this train that night. Anyway, I'm painting, he's painting. I'm on the right side of the center doors, he's on the left side. The paint, there was a flash of light, there was a flammable moment, and Mark was burned. We exited, and shortly after that incident, there was an article in the Times. You know, it was a subsequent story and follow-up. I didn't meet Hickey and Ski, but I met some graffiti police as a result of that story. And within 4 or 5 months, I joined the military. Because when they came to me, the authorities, if you will, I said to them, well, look, I mean, this is a tragedy. My friend's still in the hospital. I'm done. You know, I'm turning 18 in November, and shortly thereafter, because I was 17 in September of 73, I'm going in the military. So, I'm done. And, no face, no case, no cameras, nobody caught me doing anything. It's someone's word against, So I wasn't going to cop to it, but I also said to them, look, I'm out. So that's how I exited the scene. And it's funny because I looked at the Times article recently. I mentioned it also. it's available, New York Times, graffiti, incident, whatever. You can find it. But I read it, and it did change my life, because as it's presented in the New York Times, in the metropolitan section, this is the Times, right? I mean, it's supposed to be the truth. There's 3 words that really did change my life, and it was abandon and pain. And those words insinuated that his accomplice, whoever was with him that night, I go unmentioned, which is thanks for that. Not like I threw my name under the bus, but everyone knew that I was with Mark. And now, that was unfortunate, but once again, that incident changed my life. That story changed my life, because, well, now I'm almost like running away, in a way, from a story that was told about me that was untrue. And this never gets resolved until 94, when we're all in Arizona, me, Lee, Pink, Stash, Chico, like some eclectic group. What?
There was a symposium at the 6th Congress Gallery
This
that
is
year.
True. This is true.
And you guys were flown out.
Yep.
And the Source magazine actually covered it for the June 94 issue.
Wow.
And as a tragic twist of fate, before the issue actually hit the newsstands, Ali had passed.
Mark passed, yes.
So I was working on his obituary prior to the issue even hitting the stands.
Right. We had to do an addendum now to the story, because Mark, who was being featured, has now passed.
And the story is passed before the story even hit the newsstands. So Zephyr and you were probably the 2 greatest sources of information at that time. I got to learn about how brilliant Ali was and how forward-thinking he was.
He really was.
Coined the phrase New York, and there were so many important things. The zine that he created, and the band that he was in, and the work that
J.
he was
Walter
producing.
Negro. His band was called J. Walter Negro and the Loose Joints.
There are videos on YouTube, so you can find it if anyone
Pump.
is interested.
I think Shoot the Pump was his big hit. But I wanted to say, in 94, when we did the symposium and the exhibition at 6th Congress in Tucson, we all did a little video clips of ourselves, just to introduce us to the audience, and something that, some content they could see about the artist. And Mark gave an interview. And in Mark's interview, now, this is 94. We're 30 years removed from the incident. 31 years later. We're here now in Arizona, after the One Tunnel fire. Our lives have changed. I got a couple of kids. He's living out there. Everything is, it's a brave new world. Mark gives an interview where he basically does a mea culpa to the whole incident that night, that I was wrongfully accused, the whole thing. I didn't cry really when I saw the Mata photo. I cried when I saw this, because we're all seeing it for the first time. We're all there in the auditorium. This is airing. These words are coming out of Mark's mouth, essentially, finally, exonerating me from any, I'm completely exonerated here, because my man's admitting that I was falsely accused. For petty reasons of kids and the jealousy, it's really like, I'm still trying to get this tape from Patricia just to see it again. I've only seen it one time. It's almost like too moving. It's like, oh my God, I can't. But the sadness is, Chino, when I came back from the military in 78 and we formed up again, and we started the SA again, and met Dondi and Zeph and Hayes, and the whole thing rekindled for the 80s. Here we go. I was waiting for him to just come to me, cry, hug, say, hey man, I'm fucking sorry. I'm sorry for how all that happened. Here we are. I love you. Because now, 4 years later, removed, I'm out of the military. I mean, I'm only 22, but I'm a young man now. There's no more of this childish shit. I've seen the world. I've handled levels of responsibility. I know what's up out there. And everything back here is pale by comparison. This shit's easy. I've worked a real job. I know leadership responsibility. I know all these things, or at least I think I do. And all I needed from him was, hey man, I'm sorry for how that went down. Let's move ahead. And we never had that moment of closure until this day. And then after we left, he died within a week. I got a call from his mother. That made me feel even more emotional, in the sense of like, wow, like he had to have been troubled by this his whole life for not dealing with it, perhaps. And once he had, well, he's good, right? I mean, that's how I perceived it, because why then would he have, you see what I mean? It doesn't make sense. Like, you could have done it back then, we could have been, could have been done it. So it's a sad, tragic ending, but in a way, I'm grateful that at least, you told the truth about that day. Lee was there, like I say, like my contemporary, we all saw it. And it was quite moving, because once again, like, there was always this mystery of like, hey, is Lenny telling the truth? And the funny thing is, like, all the new, New York Times is called like, all the news that's fit to print, right? That's their motto. And we always believed all this kind of, academic, intellectual paper, whatever, you're truthful. But I'll tell you, I lost my confidence in printed media, actually.
I join you with that. One of my good friends was on trial years ago, and I found myself obsessing, reading newspaper stories daily, and the only thing that they got right was his name.
My God.
And I was like, they're assassinating his character. And
Yeah.
what I learned was that speculation is worthy of the first 4 pages of the newspaper.
Wow.
And when they make a mistake, you'll find it in an inch-by-inch box next to the Daily Jumble. It's not prioritized to tell you they made a mistake.
I understand.
It's somewhere sandwiched between the Daily Jumble and your horoscope.
Yeah. But as long as they put it in there, then they've covered their
or at least they feel. And also, the first casualty in any war is going to always be the truth.
The truth, no doubt.
So this is fascinating, and I'm inclined to think, maybe I'm wrong, that you're the first graffiti artist that has written graffiti, joined the military, and then came back and resumed graffiti. And in 1980, you paint the Brakes car, which is pretty monumental. I'm just curious what the inspiration for this was.
Well, in the summer of 80, or a few months in 1980, Zephyr and I ran this project called SE Studios. It was a rental we had in the Upper East Side, like kind of studio apartment for a couple of months, and we kind of recruited all of the writers of that moment to come through. It was furnished with materials, canvases, paint, markers, black books. Like, we had everything there. It was like a, youth workshop to come paint.
It was a who's who, by the way, because there's Mackie, there's Dondi, there's you, there's Bill Rock.
Yeah.
All of Shy 147, all of my favorite graffiti, the guys that made me want to write graffiti.
Butch and Case came in and, vamped the paint. Like, Lee came in for an interview. He refused because in 1979, he had the first exhibition in Rome. So we were all, Lee was on a pedestal at that time, and, still is for me. But just to say that we ran this program, and I was one of the, managers of that studio. We stretched all the canvases. We did everything. Me and Zeph, we opened, we closed. We ran that thing like clockwork for a couple of months. At the end of that period, I'd seen everybody paint. I'd seen all the technical abilities. Whenever I was observing people painting, I was just watching, learning. And it'd be the kind of thing now, like if you went to one of these festivals and there's like 10 or 15 artists, and you get a chance to walk around and watch people work, it's pretty cool. Like, you see their technical style. So after all of that, I wanted to do because I was already like, you know what, I'm out of here. I'm tagging up randomly. I gotta do a whole car. Dondi's my best friend. I'm hanging out with Zeph. I'm like, damn, I gotta do a whole car. So, but I was like, okay, I gotta do something that's not been done. I'm not trying to come up and do a Futura piece right now. And so for me, Break was about not what was there, about what wasn't there, I think. And it was a bold idea, because even after I did it, people were like, yo, like, what is that? And I was like, yeah, it's different, But for me, it was also like, it was, I've said it's my love letter to graffiti or whatever, but it was my goodbye. It was my opus. I tried to do a couple of other cars. I tried to do one with some characters in a different colorway, and the other 2 subsequent cars I tried to do. Some images of some bits are available, but never finished and nothing complete. And also, what makes Break what it is Martha's photograph. That's the other thing. It's like you have to acknowledge that without her incredible documentation of that train, Well, I mean, what am I going to do? I'm going to try to explain that to you, and you're going to get it?
You can't always put greatness into words. You have to really witness these things. I can tell you what the Grand Canyon looks like.
Yes.
Or what it feels like to be next to Niagara Falls or on the pyramid. But until you actually see it.
Of course.
The first time I saw Monet's water lilies was in a 4x6 postcard.
Yep.
And when I saw it in person, I
And
realized this thing took up 3 rooms by itself. And I thought to myself, I'm never going to look at a photo and assume that I know what this thing looks like, feels like, what the experience of, or what the greatness feels like.
Where was that? At the Louvre in Paris?
No, I saw it in the MoMA here.
In the MoMA, okay.
In the States.
Yeah, I mean, for me, once again, Break was just the continuation of the person I am, in a sense of like, okay, I'm living off that Futura identity. I'm trying to make a comeback in the 80s now. It's 1980. Here we go. And, like I said, I mean, I was still into that Futura thing in the sense of like, well, I'm married to the name in the sense of like, I got to do something different. Now, was I thinking like, I want to do abstract? Of course not. It had nothing to do with that. It was simply about, I need to fill this dimension. To me, I broke the whole card down to, it's just, it's the scale of it. We'd seen Lee dominate, Dondi scene, people would just, staff, Blade, people were just killing whole card dimensions. And I was like, yeah, but it's all still the same school. They do the name, they do the characters, amazing drop shadow, this, that, and the other, but what if it was just like, I don't know, like a painting or something like that. Right? It was just thinking outside the box. And in a way, I was, because we talked about, I don't think I saw Marty's photo for a year. So much so, like, this is shot in 80. It doesn't even make it into the first iteration of Subway Art, which is being put together like 81, 82, because she don't even know she has the photo. Now, in time, 20-year anniversary, big format, yeah, I mean, I'm in there, and I'm very grateful. But, I mean, that wasn't an accident, but it was definitely an experiment.
The MTA did a remarkable job of preserving the integrity of the piece and only removing paint from the numerical placards on the left and right side of the car.
Okay.
And they meticulously removed the paint off the circular MTA logo.
Okay.
So in most of the photos that are online, it's almost as if it was covered. Like I know freight train painters today will cover the numbers so that it's not buffed, and then they'll peel the tape off to reveal the number.
This just in, that's me.
So you covered the numbers yourself.
Oh yeah.
So you were maybe 30 years
I was already conscious of what the system needed, and that was certainly the numbers.
Okay.
So they weren't going to get covered, and there's within the abstract break that I did there, where the tag is, there's a couple of little design elements, very minimal, weird even, that were like, why are you guys there? But those were done with the same tape that I used to tape off the numbers and the MTA circle. Just to say, yeah, I thought, I mean, because it's funny, later that day, right, I think I stayed up all night because I came out of the Dondi, me and Zeph, because you see some pictures of the train, you see a Zephyr next, because there were married cars. So my car, and then there was a married car right on the right, and Zephyr did a Zephyr window down, door-to-door piece, if you will. And we probably left, it was Utica Avenue, it was like the Dondi spot. Probably left out of there like 4 a.m. And then I was up all day. I was up all morning, and then later went looking for the train, knowing where it was, and it was going to roll in that direction, and knowing it's going to be on this side as it comes through. And then I saw it coming. It went past. I got, whatever, just got a crazy rush, and then went down and then got onto the station to now get on the train. That was my mission too. I want to see it, and then I want to get in it. And then I got in it and rode in it, and basically eventually got out of it. But I remember the biggest rush of that was being inside of it, and it was a beautiful day, sun coming through. and being in the car as the sun was coming through the colors, and just like that moment of like, wow, I'm riding inside of this thing, and you know, what are the, you know, like even that was a bit extra, you know, like having this exciting moment all by myself. It was all just me, like doing recon and finding the train and then riding in it, and not having a camera to document any of it. It wasn't, you know, I didn't even think like that, I guess, at the time, which is dumb.
Most people weren't thinking.
I was just into the moment,
sure.
you know, and the moment was very exciting. And then later, we discovered that CBS News had done an art, 30 minutes news story, maybe similar-ish to the one that you would have seen, you mentioned on the town or whatever, that thing you talked about at the beginning of the conversation. But I don't know if I saw it in real time. We had a little window monitor up at the Bronx because there's a photo of the train and this little story from CBS. But they have rolling stock of the break on this story. So that means they shot it in 80. Now, whether they sat in a can and it later aired, and that also blew my mind, because I was like, wow, wait a minute, like, you know, I don't remember, like, because once again, I mean, you know, I probably never saw that broadcast in real time, you know, back when there was like, what, 1980, you know, whatever, how many, you know, we didn't have, no, I don't think cable even arrived yet. So we're in an antiquated broadcast system where, you know, if you don't see it when it airs, that shit goes to some crazy sized tape, you'll never see it, right? So the fact that we did see the archive over time is wonderful, because once again, like, yeah, I mean, I'm being interviewed, that's cool, but there's the break train on rolling stock. So that was quite a moment, you know, and I guess, like I said, I think that was my grand moment, no doubt, on trains, for sure. But it was also my departure, because now we're going into the quote-unquote, we're surfacing into what's going to become the art world, maybe, right?
And you discovered downtown Manhattan in the early 80s, and there's a enormous touch point here. 1981 seemed to be a very busy year for you. There's a lot to unpack during this time frame.
Yeah.
But you are featured in the British punk band The Clash's This Is Radio Clash music video.
Yeah.
It appears that you're stealing some Rust-Oleum paint. You're doing a little
from
bit
Versizi Hardware on 23rd Street.
I still remember that place.
Yeah, great spot.
And it appears that you're stealing paint in the video. You're
on roller skates.
Doing a little bit of painting.
Yep.
There's an Art is the World car that rolls by.
Yep.
And at some point at the end of the video, there's a canvas that you drape off the roof of Bonds in Times Square.
Yes.
And I believe you, Zephyr, and possibly Kylie Jenkins worked on this canvas.
You nailed it, Chino. That's correct.
And you hung it from the roof.
Yeah.
And then, as it was explained to me, The Clash invited you to go on tour with them.
That's correct. After they saw the banner that the three of us had painted, we got an opportunity to meet the group. Their performances were overbooked at Bonds, and they wound up playing 12 or more dates, 12 to 15 performances they had to do, or they did. And the beauty of their time in New York and my meeting them and everything was coincided with the fact that, like, hip-hop as we know it, spots like the Roxy and this kind of emerging thing now was pretty much on the street, literally. You know, cardboard, boombox, breakdancing, somebody emceeing, whatever. And they were getting exposed to this whole thing in real time. They met me, oh, wow, you're an artist. I met their filmmaker, Don Letts, who kind of hired me as a location scout for them, to bring them around New York and show them around. And I was explaining to them what was going on. They wound up having all these rap acts. So they had a song, they had a double album called Sandinista, but they had a song called Magnificent Dance. And it was being played on WBLS. So it's really weird. They had this upbeat dance track being played on black radio in New York, but they're a punk group from the UK. So the whole thing was weird. Like, they got thrown into this cultural mix. And they embraced it. You know, the airplay was cool, but they embraced the culture as they saw it, at least through me and what they saw visually. And they loved it. So all of those Clash shows have rap acts opening for them. So it's pretty remarkable on their part. And this is before Run and Aerosmith. Now, this is a Clash coming in 1981 and putting us on, actually. Or certainly, they put me on, but they also put on a lot of the acts, Double Trouble, Cold Crush, like a lot of the acts that were all because Wild Style was being shot in 81. Style Wars was being shot in 81. 81 was the, and that's why, like, I'm not asked out of Style Wars and Wild Style, but when the actual filming was being made for both of those films, I'm off on tour with them. I come back from my couple, 2-3 month experience with them in Europe. I run up to the Dixie Club, and I'm in a scene at the Dixie Club as an extra with Dondi in Wild Style. So I managed to actually get into Wild Style, at least in a cameo extra role. And I'm in the outtakes on the boat with Style Wars and, you know, Henry and the making of that. But I'm not in the actual front and center part because, quite frankly, like, I just wasn't around at the time. And once again, that was all cool because even when those things were being made, I was like, no, this whole thing, it's not going to happen. And then the next year is the rap tour. And that's really a kind of like, wow, wait a minute, maybe this thing is, like, maybe there is a scene here.
So I got to meet Don Letts in London while we were working on the Saatchi show.
Yes.
What an absolute legend.
What a beautiful man, right?
I was blown away by his history. There were pictures of him with Bob Marley.
Oh my God.
On the Clash set.
He was
directing the musical Youth video.
Was he not Bob's like weed guy?
It was surreal, and he was such an accomplished man. I got to me and Mike Wise got to set up his vitrine in his display area. So I got to visit his home, go through the ephemera with him.
Yeah, man.
And then return what we weren't able to use. He had a boombox or a big radio that had a Futura tag on it, a Dondi tag on it, George Clinton.
Wow.
And this radio is famous. It's in the album cover. It's in press photos of him in Times Square.
I think I've seen
on the subway. So we put that on display.
Wow.
And he asked me, is Lenny here? And I said, he's not in London for the show.
Oh, my God.
And he was like, you please give him my regards.
No, Don.
But what an absolute legend and honor to sit with Don. And there are two things that I'm curious about now. So you toured with The Clash, and I was under the impression that they brought you on tour to paint live canvases during performances. Was this correct?
Yeah, so in Paris and in London, I was behind the stage, behind them on the stage, painting a large piece of fabric over the period of 5 nights. So Monday, if you will, we start, and then I'm just working now from Monday through Friday every night, continuing this like painting. So it's a work in progress that would be finalized over the last day. And that was my role with them on tour. The thing about Don, when I first arrived in London, Don's in New York working on what would become a film called Clash on Broadway. He stayed behind because he'd gotten set up in New York and he loved it. The boys love New York. But now they're back in the UK on tour. I go with them. We're in London. They're rehearsing now to go on this tour. So here I am. Don says to me, now this is the crazy thing about, 44 years ago, 1981. I've only known Don for a month or more here in New York. I've been asked now to go to London. He goes, okay, here's the keys to my flat. I live in Brixton off the blah, 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 Metro, whatever, tube station. Elephant and Castle or whatever it was. Oval, I forget what. Dude gives me the keys to his apartment. So, I mean, that's just like another time, another place, right? Because no one, we don't operate like that anymore. So here I am. I'm like in a new country. I've never been to Europe before. I'm in London. I go to Brixton. I find my way there. I can find my directions. I'm ex-military. I'm good. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm in this guy's apartment. And I'm in his home. And I fell in love with reggae music because he was such a reggae guy. And like just playing his cassette tapes and just listening and, And so when I came back, I was big on Don, And I told him like, man, I love you so much for being so generous with me. You know what I mean? And like, so from the very start, we were very close and continue to be, And sadly, I would say my best mate, not only Mick Jones, love Mick, but Joe was such a wonderful man to me and treated me with such respect, and I'm so grateful for his friendship.
And you got to record a track with Mick Jones.
I don't talk about the escapades that much.
Okay, we can keep that one in the pocket.
Yeah,
I'll leave that one alone.
There you go.
Now, what I want to ask also is, around this very same period, you went on tour.
Yes.
It was probably the first hip-hop tour with Fab Five Freddy.
Correct.
You ended up in London.
Correct.
And now I'm curious, because I have the timelines a little confused in my head.
Yep.
You were in London with The Clash, and you were in London with Fred. But at some point, you painted a piece along the trackside in Ladbroke Grove.
Ladbroke Grove, Westbourne Park
which
area.
I believe was considered the first piece of modern graffiti.
It's kind of
in
crazy
London?
that they want to give me that. But when I first arrived in London, yes, I was living at Don's flat in Brixton. But their recording studio and their base of operations was this Ladbroke Grove, Westbourne Park area. And by the metro station, I saw this wall on the way as I'd taken the tube there. I was like, damn, I could throw a piece up there. Now, yeah, this is 81. So we come back to London the following year, 82. So when I did that piece along the Skyway or whatever, the Westway, that was 1981 when I was with The Clash, just me there alone. In 82, when we came back, we didn't do anything there. We were only there for like a day and a half. We only came into town to do one performance, and that's where Jeanette Beckman famously photographed Ram, Freddie, the photo of me and Don D by the dumpster. But that was like an in-and-out, burger kind of an operation. We didn't stay there long. But we did dip our foot into the UK, and that was cool. And yeah, by that time, maybe people had heard of me, even in the UK at that time, because I was just there the previous year with The Clash. So, that was part of the hype about me being on that tour initially, just because I was also friends with the organizational people. But, oh yeah, Futura, you were just in Paris and London, with The Clash. So.
And during this same time stateside,
Zilch.
Patty Astor is starting the Fun Gallery.
Patty's starting Fun.
And a lot of the names that we recognize as established artists today, that was probably the gallery that a lot of people, maybe Kenny Scharf, Keith, and so on and so forth, have had their first solo graffiti shows.
Everybody, a lot of people's first shows were at the Fun, Keith, Kenny, myself, Dondi, Kylie. I think Andy would have shown eventually when she moved to 10th Street, started on 11th, went to 10th. But yeah, that was the beginning of alternative spaces in the East Village. Fashion Moda was up and running. There was an exhibition. Crash, prior to Patty, Crash did the Gas exhibition, Graffiti Art Success. That was in Fashion Moda. That's also the end of 80. It's like after the mashup of SE Studios, later people started getting the mindset of like, yeah, we should organize and do something. Fashion Moda was a convenient answer for the guys like Crash and Days that were living right there in that area. So I'd say before the Fun, it was even Fashion that did the first exhibition. Fun's popping up. The New York New Wave show in 1982 is also very important. Enter Jean-Michel, and and now the 80s is really stimulated. Even Jean almost showed with us at Fun, but was just kind of, I would say, on another level, even early on.